In late November of 2022, a man from Fujian province in China arrived at a farm in Kingfisher County, Oklahoma. He got out of his car with a 9mm handgun and barged into a garage on the property where he demanded the $300,000 he was owed. A man at the farm, known as the boss, told his girlfriend to call her brother to get the money after he was shot in the knee as a warning. The shooter told him he had 30 minutes, but as time passed, no money appeared, and the shooter became agitated. But by this time, the boss was done with the whole situation and told the shooter to just finish him off. At some point, a hostage situation had been reported to the local police, but when they arrived around 8 p.m., all they found was 4 bodies in a garage and a man wounded in a nearby truck. You see, the shooter, Chen Wu, invested in this farm, which was an illegal marijuana farm, but when there was a dispute over money, Chen Wu parted ways. But clearly he held a grudge. Wu was a heavily connected triad involved in a billion-dollar multi-level operation with illegal farms, brothels sponsored by human trafficking, and of course, money laundering. And the money leaves a trail all the way back to New York City. Even the DEA couldn't believe the size and complexity of an operation like this, and how for the most part, there was no war in the streets between any of these groups. The triad bosses would fly from China to have sit-downs in New York to discuss their operations. And just so you know, triad is a rather vague term. It can be used to describe several organized crime syndicates from China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, even though triads also operate all over Europe, East Asia, South America, and even in South Africa. And Oklahoma isn't just some random state. Despite it being legal to grow in Oklahoma with a certain license, the illegal growing market generates at least $8 billion a year, with 75% of the criminal groups running them being of Chinese origin, although some sources put this number at 80%.
These criminal groups continue to dominate the industry in Oklahoma. They make up nearly 75% of the industry in Oklahoma.
From business meetings,
keep bringing them in. Bro, I'm dead ass, like, keep bringing them in, bro. Like, we need the trees, man. I need the trees. Like, I ain't no fiend or whatever, but still, we need them. They need to keep doing what they doing. Don't stop.
In New York City, they dominate the entire black market in certain states. Now, it may not be hard to believe, but finding information about Asian American organized crime syndicates is pretty difficult, mainly because they were so messy back in the day when major gang wars broke out from San Francisco to New York City, resulting in multiple murders. So now most public information about these groups is centered on information from the 70s to the 90s. Outside of California, knowledge of Asian American gangs is pretty scarce. But if you look close enough, you start to see things that look suspicious. Why is it that every time an illegal brothel or happy ending massage is busted in New York, it happens in Queens, where some, if not all of the women being from East Asia, mostly China? And why have several indictments quietly been coming out for years involving Chinese nationals and Chinese Americans, smuggling, trafficking, and money laundering? Again, with a specific geographic location, New York City. What took me down this rabbit hole is when I saw a video at a restaurant called Fish Village, a Chinese seafood restaurant in College Point, which is a predominantly Hispanic and Asian neighborhood in Queens, New York. And it features what appears to be a large group of possibly Asian or Hispanic teenagers ransacking the building. But the video went viral on WeChat, which is the most popular social media app in China. Now, these kids did $20,000 in damage to the restaurant, and officially, the NYPD has no clue what the motive for this would have been. It is strange that these kids would just do this to a seafood restaurant. We've seen plenty of times how groups of kids have ransacked gas stations and so on, but they usually steal something. These kids just tore up a restaurant, acting as if they just accomplished the mission. Was this a result of some sort of extortion?
Deep as hell, like, what the hell? They must got something going on with the owner or something, or they must know one of they ops be there or something. Something going on. I know they ain't just going there just to damn fuck up stuff in the restaurant. I know that ain't going.
Restaurant owner behind on protection money? Or was this just a random attack? It happened in 2023, and still, no suspect has ever been identified or arrested. But this got me looking into Queens, which is home to many of the over 600 illegal brothels in New York. From 2020 to 2021, multiple illegal brothels were shut down in Queens, and this might have been blamed on the influx of migrants from South America, but in reality, it's something that has been going on in Queens for a long time. In 2024, a group of 9 men were indicted by the FBI for running a trafficking ring, as well as robbery and multiple assaults. For years, women have been imported from China through criminal networks, either being sent across the border from Mexico or flown in legally and having their passports taken, much like the kafala system in the Middle East that traps migrant workers. And it was the duty of a man named Yuan Yuan to confiscate the passports. And he also acted as the muscle, attacking groups of sex workers who were employed by rivals. And many of the women in this organization, and others, are smuggled into the city by a group known as Snakehead, which is a Chinese gang from Fujian province that has even been known to ally with Cosa Nostra, the Sicilian mafia. And this is another group operating.
Okay, like I knew Asians and the Chinese. I know they got like little shit going on. I know like everywhere is something going down, but I didn't know they was doing shit like this, bro. I ain't know they was being this crazy and fucking up restaurants and killing their ops and doing this and that. They're like, come on, bro. You look at them, they're like good boys. Like you see them, you think positive about this shit. You think positive about this shit, but you don't just look at them as a, oh yeah, they a gangster. He was like, he finna go. You know what I'm saying? But it be crazy though.
Background that makes the news for an arrest every now and then, but for the most part, people have never heard of them. In the early 2010s, confidential informants and undercover officers in New York City led to the arrest of 35 people associated with the Snakehead gang. These men were accused of smuggling people from China to the United States, where they would be placed in hotels in Queens and Manhattan before being picked up to carry out various jobs. The group was involved in the drug trade, fraud, stealing cargo from shipping containers, and they even planned a home invasion in the presence of an undercover officer and a confidential informant. The owner of the house they planned to rob was a restaurant owner in New York, and they'd been watching him apparently because they knew what he was taking home and expected to get around $70,000. But the men planning it were arrested shortly after. This was just one of the multiple planned home invasions that year, all involving restaurant owners. And this is why I suspect that the video of the teens in College Point had something to do with the restaurant owner. But the most disturbing part of this rabbit hole takes place in Brooklyn in upstate New York. Within 1 year, from 2013 to 2014, two different families from the same province in China, Fujian, were executed. The Zhou family in Brooklyn and the Chen family in Guilderland, just outside of Albany, New York. And not only did people notice the similarities between these two events, but authorities have even traced both back to human trafficking, including the father in one family being sort of a money man, and the other, which is the perpetrator, being $70,000 in debt to the Snakehead gang. At 16 years old, Ming Dong Chin was, according to multiple sources, including the New York Times and the South China Morning Post, smuggled into the U.S. from Fujian by snakeheads. And this put him $70,000 in debt to them, a debt he had to pay off.
Y'all really think about it, like they smart as fuck. Like them niggas know what they be doing.
About working at Chinese takeout restaurants. But it also appears that the Snakehead gang had connections in immigration because it was reported that Chen was able to apply for asylum in the U.S. with the help of a fake testimonial that a Chinatown immigration agency helped him draft. Either way, the Snakehead smuggled him in because he was easy money. But unfortunately, after moving into his cousin's apartment in Brooklyn, while his cousin was out working in a restaurant, Chen would be left at the house with his cousin's 4 children and their mother, where he would commit a quintuple homicide, with the motive still not being known to this day. According to the Lin Sing Association, a Chinese-American organization that provides assistance to Chinese immigrants, they believe Chen was jealous of his cousin because he was more successful than him. And even the former NYPD chief says this is what Chen told him in his confession. But the next year, in upstate New York, Jin Chen and his entire family were murdered. And this case is still unsolved 11 years later. It was the first quadruple homicide in the history of New York's capital region. But once the investigation began, local authorities alleged that Jin Chen handled large amounts of under-the-table money that flowed through undocumented workers at a Chinese restaurant. Now, Sing Tao, which is one of the oldest news outlets in Hong Kong, stated that Jin was murdered after leaving a high-stakes gambling party, and that the shooter also finished the job at Jin's house before stealing a large amount of money. Which is interesting, because despite authorities claiming that he handled a lot of off-the-book cash, I haven't seen any reports of cash being found at the scene, and it's alleged that Jin also ran his own gambling operation. But both of these claims have been denied by his brother. But again, this case was also somehow tied to the Snakeheads, as they seem to have a monopoly on smuggling people from China. A local
man, once you making a lot of money, boy, like doing whatever you doing, and people know that you making a hella bread, and you making a lot of money than others. You down there a target, bro. You gotta keep up your fucking money. Like, you gotta make sure you safe down there, bro. Hire security guards or keep some. Cause once motherfuckers know you making a large amount of money than others, twin, they gonna try to rob you. They gonna try to kill. They finna do anything to get that money, bro.
A Chinese pastor who didn't want his name released stated that the snakeheads were most likely responsible for the undocumented workers at Jin's restaurant. And authorities also state that Jin served as sort of a banker and manager when it came to these funds from smuggling and the indentured servitude that the workers would be placed in once they arrived in the US. Now, although the snakeheads are not behind any of these murders, their association with the 14K triads and large money operations certainly created the opportunity for situations like this to occur. And this is a great demonstration of why operations like this are hard to uncover. Because instead of gang politics, it's like the mafia, but more ruthless and corporate. And by corporate, I mean literally, because there have been biotech executives, actual executives at a big company in China involved in the US drug trade. Like the Italian mob, these guys are now embedded into local government, big business, and possibly even international relations. Kinda like the Russian mafia, which I would love to do a
Hey, so I got a real question though. I'm gonna let the video
on, but again, these guys are really good at their job, so it's very hard to find information on them. But obviously, as far as New York, I just scratched the surface. But I thank you guys for watching as always. I appreciate your support.
Alright, so look, who y'all think worse? The cartel, which is the Mexicans, or the Asians, or the Chinese people? Y'all, what y'all think? Who y'all think worse though? Cause it be sounding like they a little more, crazy, my friend.